Hello, guys, gals, and gamers. I think that's my intro. Yes, that's how it goes. Thank you for clicking on this video. In case you did it accidentally, yes, I finally got my third view. Great. It is lovely being a small YouTube channel, isn't it? But I wanted to make a video about Pokemon Legends ZA, the thing that was just revealed last week. Here's my reaction to it. Was cool. But yeah, I wanted to make a video kind of like what should we expect from the game, and then I realized that hey, we don't really know what this whole Legends thing is about, so why not talk about that for a video? That could be exciting. That might make people click on the title and the thumbnail and enjoy my video and then subscribe, and then I get rich and famous and then die at 27. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan, so let's do that. But before we can really get on to Legends ZA, let's really think for a moment what Legends Arceus did that was different from the traditional Pokemon experience, and then look into what from Legends Arceus could transfer over into Pokemon Legends ZA. So, cool transition! One of the bigger differences in Pokemon Legends Arceus compared to the traditional Pokemon games was the story. In traditional Pokemon games, you are a tiny little gremlin of a 10-year-old and you get invited by a creepy professor to complete the Pokédex or something. The professor gives you one of 3 starter Pokemon and then you set out on your adventure, defeating gym leaders and eventually the champion. Along the way, you will have rivals, maybe 1, maybe 3, maybe 4. What the fuck, X and Y? I don't like any of these guys. Why do they need to be there? And if you're lucky, you will also meet a criminal organization and have to defeat them as they try to take over the world. But for Pokemon Legends Arceus, it was a bit different. So the start of Pokemon Legends Arceus is very interesting because unlike in most Pokemon games where you start off the game talking to some random professor, you start the game up with talking to the god of all Pokemon. And the god of all Pokemon just wants you to get transferred into the past to do some shenanigans for them. Yeah, it's a very weird and unique type of a story for a Pokemon game to have, and I really welcome it. The setting in Pokemon Legends Arceus is the old region of Hisui, current name Sinnoh. And the Hisui region is basically wilderness at this point. It hasn't been developed yet by humans. They only have like one village there and like a couple of camps in other places. And it is really wilderness because the wild Pokemon here, they are wild, they are feral. They can, and they probably also will, try to attack you, the player. Not just your Pokemon that you're having, but also you, the player. So yeah, it's dangerous, it is wild, and it is fascinating. Eventually in the story you are taken into Jubilife Village. And this place is acting kind of like as a hub world in this game. From there you go to every other open area of the game. And in the story you are part of the survey team of Jubilife Village. And your job is basically catch Pokemon, do some research on them, help with rampaging wild Pokemon, explore the lands a bit, and also, hey, there's some weird space-time phenomenon going on, so if you could also do that, it would be a real good help. And unlike other games in the series, Pokemon Legends Arceus is way more focused on catching Pokemon rather than just battling. It's not just about battling gym leaders and becoming a champion, because this is all about like doing the research and finding more about Pokemon. And one way the game does this is this brand new amazing feature of being able to catch Pokemon without initiating any battles with them. You can sneak around the Pokemon, you can hide in bushes, you can lay traps for the Pokemon and just wait for the perfect time to catch the Pokemon. Battling, of course, does exist in the game as well, but it is kind of different than what it used to be. In previous Pokemon games, when you attacked with your Pokemon, it was then the opponent's time to attack, and then it was yours again. But in Legends Arceus, this works a bit differently. The amount of actions that you can do before your opponent depends on your speed stats and the actions that you do. This is amplified further by the inclusion of strong and agile style moves for your Pokemon. Basically, strong moves attack for a bit more damage, but they slow you down, and agile moves do kind of the opposite. If you use agile moves, you are more likely to hit 2 times before the opponent, and strong, it's very likely that the opponent might be able to hit you 2 times after that. But yeah, it's an interesting mechanic, though unfortunately, at least in my opinion, it didn't really work out that well because it was not explained well in the beginning, and it led to many moments where the battling was a bit confusing or felt unfair. And I kind of see why Game Freak opted out of having multiplayer online battles for this game, because the battle system was so much different, but there are other reasons for the lack of multiplayer there as well, and I will get to those later on. The rest of battling mechanics from previous games are either removed or simplified. Gone are such things as Pokemon's ability, held items, and moves that hit multiple Pokemon, such as Earthquake. So now that we have gotten over at least some of the major things that Pokemon Legends Arceus did differently from the more traditional Pokemon games, I want to take some time to really reflect on what this could mean on Pokemon Legends ZA, and also kind of what is the Legends series? What is this series going to be about? What defines it? Really, the main meat of the video starts from here. And it is really tricky to think about this at this point, because we only have one game to base our knowledge on. And what we know of Legends ZA is not very much. We have a teaser trailer, but there is no gameplay, there is no screenshots, basically nothing to analyze. The only other thing we have is like small tidbits that the Pokemon Company has given us with its marketing of this game. One of the bigger mysteries of ZA seems to be the setting and the story. What we know so far is that the game takes place in Lumiose City of the Kalos region. And this news actually was kind of a small shock to the Pokemon community because, first of all, we've never had a game taking place inside just one city. And two, because this kind of seems like contradictory to what Pokemon Legends Arceus was about. Like I mentioned, the setting in that game was in the wilderness. Pokemon were wild and feral all over the place. The people were not so developed yet. And this does seem like contradictory to being only inside a city. How can the Pokemon be everywhere, being wild and feral? How can we have such catching mechanisms in this game as we did in the original? How does it work? And I don't think it is as contradictory as other people seem to think it is, because we have seen wild Pokemon just wandering around every city in the Pokemon universe. And of course, like Lumiose City is not an exception to this either, because it has a lot of parks, it has a lot of water waves, a lot of places where the Pokemon can just live freely. I know that you might have not assumed this because of the original Pokemon X and Y. There was like a little shrubbery here and there, but I think it is just mainly because of like back in the day, the systems were still very limited on what they could do. And if you look at something like Lumiose City from the anime, I think that will paint a better picture on what the map or the Lumiose City of this game could be like. And also, it's good to note that the teaser trailer did talk about a plan for people and Pokemon to start beautifully coexisting. I would take this as likely meaning that the game is taking place in a time where the coexistence is a bit troubled, so there might still be very big angry Pokemon in that city, even though it is just a city. For the setting, we also do not know if ZA takes part in the past or the future, but honestly, I don't think it really matters when we are discussing the DNA of what Legends could be about. For example, if we were to have a Legends game set in the Alola region, I would think it would go into like other dimensions and stuff instead of time travel. I also would think that mechanically, at least, what will separate the Legends series from the traditional games is just putting less focus on the battles themselves. In the traditional Pokemon games, you would of course have battles happening all the time with trainers or gym leaders or rivals or whatever. But this game seems to be more focused on catching, collecting Pokemon, researching them, and also kind of like helping your community, which is an important aspect of Pokemon Legends Arceus, and also seems to be, all of the redevelopment plans and integral part of Legends ZA as well. I could also see, from mechanics perspective, that Legends series will be the more single-player focused option in the future. While games like Scarlet and Violet are single-player games too, the Switch era really has expanded a lot of the multiplayer aspects in traditional Pokemon games. Options in Generation 9, being Scarlet and Violet, of playing together in the same world were kind of limited. I'm sure Game Freak will build on this in the future. They still existed, and that was not the case at all in Legends Arceus. It is also to be noted that I have a small inkling that Game Freak might be trying to turn the more traditional Pokemon games into a bit more of a live service, always a live game until the next one comes out. We have features like raid battle events, online competitions, and DLC expansions. Something that hasn't happened before, and the Legends series will probably never get. Legends Arceus just got one bigger update, still no online multiplayer with battling, just trading, and that was all they had. And I think Legends series could definitely thrive with being more marketed as a single player experience that is just easier to play through it and just be done with it. And I'm definitely not saying that the Legends series will never have any bigger multiplayer features, but I do think that the features would remain much more limited compared to the traditional games, and I wouldn't expect that much live service mechanics in Legends either. Maybe some DLC if they prove to be really popular. And we are now nearing the end of the video, but I want to also mention elements of Legends Arceus and Pokemon games that we assume will be there forever, and especially with ZA coming, there are certain elements that I think will be completely removed from the Pokemon series, maybe in Legends only, but there's a lot of stuff there. And ZA is already breaking some assumed traditions, for example, the region only being in one city, and two, the name is different. It's Legends ZA, just two letters, not named after a legendary like Legends Arceus was. So who really knows what will happen in the future? Will we get 3 starter Pokemon from previous games that will get new forms in Legends ZA? No idea. Will future Legends games be revolved around a legendary Pokemon? Maybe not. Anything's possible. And will battling in the Legends games keep evolving to the point where it's no longer turn-based at all? It's really hard to say, but all possible. And it really depends on Game Freak on how much they want to innovate, experiment, and surprise the players. Because I do believe they want to do all of those 3 things. But honestly, I do hope ZA takes a lot from what Arceus already had. Not just because Legends Arceus was one of the more inspired and refreshing Pokemon experiences in basically a decade, but also to make the development of ZA a bit easier. So yes, that is all I had to say on Pokemon Legends ZA and how it might turn out. Hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, if you really like this video or think I am extremely handsome, please consider subscribing. It is free until YouTube decides otherwise. You never know with them, they're a very weird company. But for now, it seems to be free, so do that. But I have nothing else to say here. Comment something nice in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Okay? Bye!